Look, I'm a humble creature. I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong about something. And trust me, I used to be that guy who would dislike an entire series or genre just based upon how I perceived it without even trying it out. Case in point with the RPG genre, more specifically JRPGs. There were some exceptions, but those were usually the ones that took the formula and did something unique with it. Something like this though, lame. Why would I let them have a chance to attack? Why is there so much reading? Why does it take more than an hour for the game to actually start? Pretty much any complaint you'd hear from a JRPG hater is how I felt about the genre without even playing any of them. That was until a good friend of mine strapped me to a chair and forced a PS2 controller into my hand so I could play a little game called Persona 4. 160 plus hour playthrough later, and I finally got how this genre of games can be so compelling. The immersion, strategy, and storytelling is how these types of games can be effective. And I know Persona 4 isn't exactly a traditional JRPG, but it definitely served as the perfect kind of introduction to the genre for someone like me who assumed that every JRPG was the same type of slow, boring game. After playing through Persona 4, I became a fan of not only the Persona and Shin Megami Tensei series, but JRPGs as a whole. And for a while there, I considered it to be my favorite game of all time. It took me over, man. Listening to that amazing soundtrack, trying to do perfect runs of the game, playing its prequels, watching the animated series, playing the spin-offs, I was definitely a huge fan of this game. It was like 2014 or 2015 when I first played Persona 4. I played through it and its re-release Persona 4 Golden probably about 4 or 5 times within the span of a few years. My last playthrough being in early 2017. I had not played Persona 4 again, however, until I decided to make this video. At this point, I've played plenty of JRPGs, both within and outside the same franchise as Persona 4. I've gotten into different types of genres and series of games since then too, some of which are some of the best games I've ever played. Hell, I've played Persona 3 at least 2 times in between the last time I played Persona 4 and now. With all of that in mind, I went into this playthrough of Persona 4 with one question. Is this still my favorite game of all time? Well, let's talk about it. As you may be aware, Persona 3 was a huge turning point for the Persona franchise. It added in the new day-by-day structure and social link mechanic. It sort of saved Persona from being a cult classic spin-off series to being something more unique compared to the greater Megami Tensei franchise that it spawned from. So due to Persona 3 being a hit, naturally Persona 4 would soon follow. Series director Katsura Hashino stated that they aimed to make Persona 4 a direct improvement from Persona 3, in both gameplay and in story elements, while not trying to retread on what had already been done in the previous game. A lot of that I feel like comes from shifting focus from different but similar things from Persona 3. Instead of living in a city, you live in a rural town. Instead of focusing on moon phases, you are focusing on weather patterns. Instead of investigating a tower, you're investigating a series of murders. This was only the second game to utilize the format Persona 3 introduced, so it's not like they could really turn the formula on its head yet. But the way Persona 4 structures itself is honestly way more distinct from Persona 3 than one would expect for it only being the second time the day-by-day format was used. Persona 4 was released on July 10th, 2008 in Japan and on December 9th, 2008 in North America, with Europe and Australia getting the game in March 2009. The game was a massive success in all regions, and much like with Persona 3, Persona 4 would later get an updated release in 2012 titled Persona 4 Golden for the PlayStation Vita, also known as the system I bought to play Persona 4 Golden and nothing else. It had added features and is more or less a direct improvement from the original release in most ways. So this is the version I played for this video, though I am playing the Steam version of Persona 4 Golden that was released on June 13th, 2020. Kind of a tone-deaf release. This is the best way to play Persona 4 Golden as it has every feature from the Vita version and isn't on the Vita, which is literally the only real problem Persona 4 Golden had. But why haven't they released this on all the modern consoles? I doubt even the Switch would have a problem running it, and Persona is a huge franchise now. That would literally print Atlus money. Alright, enough pre-game talk. Let's get into the game that turned me into a horrible, sweaty weeaboo. Alright guys, play the intro. No, not that one! Play the good one for Christ's sake! Persona 4 starts with the player character waking up in a limo, where series mainstay Igor introduced the contract that shows up in each one of these games that basically says, I agree to be the protagonist. We once again get to name the protagonist, but unlike every other Persona game, this character has a canon name, Yu Narukami. And I better not catch any of you Soji Seta weirdos in the comments. I don't want to have to file any more restraining orders, okay? After this, our main character arrives in the small town of Inaba, where we meet Ryotaro Dojima and Nanako Dojima, uncle and cousin of the main character that we will be staying with for the duration of the game. We start attending school, meeting characters like Yosuke Hanamura, Chie Satonaka, and Yukiko Amagi, along with a rumor going around school stating that if you look into an off TV at midnight on a rainy night, you'll see your soulmate. That's all well and good. And it's also all well and good when someone discovers a dead body of a reporter whom of which was involved in an affair scandal. Well, who cares about that? We got a rumor to test out. Our character tries out the Midnight Channel rumor, and to our surprise, it works. And we almost get sucked into the TV too. Kinda left that part out of the rumor. Yosuke and Chie don't believe us. That is until we try it out on a bigger TV, and we all fall into the mystical world of Persona 4. The Midnight Channel is literally a world inside the TV, and it's heavily impacted by the human world, mainly by how the weather is. Most notably that if it's foggy in the real world, the fog lifts in the Midnight Channel. And this irritates all the monsters that live here. The monsters that inhabit the world called shadows are the manifestation of negative human emotions from the real world. And it seems like those are the only creatures in this world until we stumble upon a bear named Teddy, or Kuma if you're playing the original Japanese version. Teddy is the only sentient resident of the Midnight Channel who claims that recently someone has been throwing people into the world. More notably, the woman who was found dead recently in the real world. One thing leads to another, and once another murder occurs, our characters agree to work together with Teddy to investigate the murders and the Midnight Channel to find out who's causing all this mess in this small town. Now, I gave as simple of a summary of the plot as I could because this game goes for the slow burn intro for its story. It takes quite a lot of time to actually get to the conflict, and I left out a lot of details from a weird dream sequence to more specifics about the murders. And what really makes this intro work is how strong each character you meet is. They all may fit a stereotype one way or another, but they're all really likable. And I think what makes them really likable is the fact that there's not a character that I would say is one note. You see each character go through a lot in this game. They all have wide ranges of emotions, and no character really blends together. Everybody's very distinct. The mystery aspect is really fun and captivating too. Even the smallest details can be analyzed to try to figure out what exactly is going on with the plot. Though I will admit there are some of those details that get revealed later as like a "oh wait, I forgot" kind of thing, which isn't my favorite. But I can understand doing this, since knowing some things earlier on can spoil some of the twists for later in the game. Mystery is the big theme of this game, as well as seeking out the truth. Fog is used in the Midnight Channel as a literal interpretation of the truth being blurred, and the special glasses that Teddy gives all the characters allows them to see through the fog to seek out the truth. Along with the theming of seeking out the truth, Persona 4 also has accepting the truth as a theme, and this comes from the idea of every person who enters the Midnight Channel having a shadow version of themselves, a concept that started in Persona 2, I might add. This shadow version is repressed emotions that the original person has been holding back, generally in an extremely exaggerated manner. What makes this concept cool is this is how we get our dungeon designs for the game. These shadow characters are also how the cast attains their personas, which is the physical manifestation of the user's fighting spirit. Once someone accepts their shadow, usually after a boss fight, their shadow turns into their persona, which makes sense because one's persona is just another version of oneself. It's fun to see that both in a supportive way and an antagonistic kind of way. Really, Persona 4 covers some heavy themes, not even just murder mystery, but being accepted and taking responsibility, accepting who you are as a person. Maybe not the heaviest in the series, but for someone in the same age group as these characters, it can hit pretty close to home. Of course, there's a mix of comedy within the serious murder mystery plot. Persona 4 goes more the slice of life route with its plot, more so than its predecessors, and I think that makes this game stand out amongst other JRPGs of a similar quality. Whether or not you actually like slice of life humor is one thing, even I think some of the gags in this game are kinda lame, but it's a genre you don't really see represented too often in games outside of like visual novels, which you could consider one half of Persona 4 to be, but even so, that works with the juxtaposition of happy small town high school social life and secret TV world where people's innermost demons come out to potentially murder them. The overall theming of Persona 4 works well with its gameplay loop and style, since the game is split into two different sections, dungeon crawler RPG and dating/high school simulator. Starting with the dungeon crawling aspect, the game operates like any JRPG at its core. You'll explore various dungeons, ascending or descending floors until you reach the highest or lowest point of that dungeon. The way these dungeons work is that once you find out where the dungeon is, you'll be sort of given a vague deadline as to when the dungeon must be completed in the form of the weather report. You have until the report says there will be a day with heavy fog to complete the dungeon, as the fog lifts in the Midnight Channel and the shadows go berserk. This does cause some anxiety if you don't complete the dungeons in one day, which is entirely possible, but the days are always set in stone, so it's not like there's a chance a day or two after finding the dungeon there will be fog. The dungeons themselves are all very distinct and have fun designs, and it should be relieving to know that the enemies will be roaming around, so no random encounters, thank God. Persona 4 operates on the one more system. If you exploit an enemy's weakness or get a critical hit, the enemy will get knocked down and you'll be able to go a second time. Knock down all the enemies and you'll be able to perform an all-out attack, in which your entire party will rush in and do massive damage to the enemy. Enemy and character weaknesses are determined by the resistances to the 8 different attack types in the game. Physical attacks are all one category now, and there are 7 different magic types: fire, ice, electric, wind, light, dark, and almighty. All magic types except for light and dark are standard attacking magic spells with various spells that determine how strong the attack is or how many enemies they hit. Light and dark are limited to instant kill attacks, which are cool for normal enemies, but for bosses, completely useless. Which is to be expected, but I wish there was a little bit more variety in light and dark attacks like there are in the other previous Megami Tensei games. Other than attack spells, we have all sorts of healing and stat buffing or debuffing spells. Unlike the mainline Megami Tensei series, you can only stack the buffs once. Using the spell again will only extend its duration. Utilizing each spell is integral to winning every battle. And just like any other game in the Megatenverse, it can get tough if you don't plan your actions ahead of time, especially during boss battles. The difficulty of these bosses can be intense if you don't do some proper grinding or have the right abilities to use. Of course, there are little abilities that can give you the edge in battle, usually in the form of a follow-up attack performed by another party member after a one more occurs. There are a lot of these. Of course, I think everyone can agree that Chie's ability, Galactic Punt, is the best since she literally sends the enemy to the moon! them! Every character has these types of abilities, including the navigator Rise. And in the second release, Persona 4 Golden, they added even more of these types of abilities, and honestly, I like them a lot. Each one of your party members has an obvious role to play, and each character end up having completely different skill sets by the end of the game, allowing for some really fun party customization. Of course, this usually means you'll end up not using some of the members early on, and Persona 4 does not allow you to switch out party members during battle or inside of a dungeon, so there won't be much worry about party leveling, you'll just want to worry about the ones you like. That being said, I really do like this whole cast. Some may say they're more tropey than previous Persona games, but I think they aimed for a more comedical and upbeat vibe, and I do enjoy that. I'll go through each member and what their strengths and weaknesses are. I feel like going in knowing this will help you decide what kind of party you want to end up making during your playthrough, and it'll make it much easier to get through the early game dungeons. Starting off with the co-founder of the investigation team, as they call their group, Yosuke Hanamura, fellow city boy and clerk at the Junes department store. It's basically like a Walmart. Yosuke's persona Jiraiya focuses on wind magic and agility buffing skills, as well as physical attack spells and a few healing and status ailment inducing skills thrown in there. Yosuke is all about making sure the enemy misses and you hit. And really, he works well if you have a persona of your own to use the agility debuffing skills on your enemies. Once you have that, then you'll always hit your mark and the enemy will more often than not miss you. Yosuke's combat abilities aren't bad either. He gets some heavy hitting physical skills later on, and the wind magic is always good when the enemy is weak to that element. Along with getting some good backup healing abilities, Yosuke's a really useful party member if you enjoy being fast as fuck. Boy! The second party member you get and the third member of the investigation team is Chie Satonaka. Martial arts fanatic and is always craving a hot plate of steak. Her persona Tomoe might get a nice attack here or there, but Chie is all about being a physical powerhouse. I'm not kidding, later on she hits freaking hard. Especially when she gets power charged, like my god. Along with obtaining skills to up her critical rate, Chie will end up being the strongest party member in the game, and I'll be honest, there's absolutely no reason not to use her during your playthrough. She covers the tank role perfectly. If you just get the abilities to buff her attack and lower the enemy's defense, then you'll just fucking crush them, man. And did I mention Galactic Punt already? Because Galactic Punt is the fucking shit, dude. Chie just might be the best party member in the game if you like to charge yourself up for one big attack like I do. I implore you to use her. The third party member and first victim to be rescued by the investigation team is Yukiko Amagi. She works at her family's inn and... her persona Konohana Sakuya is the quintessential healer of the group, learning all sorts of recovery spells from healing to revival. She may not learn as many status ailment recovery spells, but when she does, she becomes the perfect support character for the party. She also learns the entire fire line of spells, so she does have some offensive capabilities, especially if you can get Mind Charge on her. But her strengths come from her support abilities, and that's really what you would use Yukiko for if you want her in your party. The fourth member and second victim to be rescued is Kanji Tatsumi, local delinquent who looks rough on the outside but has a love for knitting stuffed animals and cute shit like that. His persona Take Mikazuchi focuses on both electric spells and physical attacks, with a few support spells mixed in there. Kanji is another powerhouse type character, but what makes him different from Chie is that his attack output is more for every attack he does rather than charging up for one big one like Chie does. Case in point with Kanji getting Cruel Attack and later on Vile Assault. These attacks do extra damage to downed enemies, so you really want to use Kanji when you just want to knock each enemy down. With the ability to tank hits with his high HP count, Kanji makes for a slow but powerful ally to use in battle. The fifth member and mysterious resident of the Midnight Channel is Teddy, Persona 4's mascot and comic relief character. His persona Kintoki Doji is another healer type with more of a focus on ailment recovery abilities, though he still gets a few HP recovery skills, along with a few party buffing abilities and stronger ice magic than what Chie gets. Teddy is good if you want a healer with a little more focus on offensive in the form of buffing your party. While Yukiko is a better healer near the end of the game and can do decent damage, Teddy works if you want a healer that doesn't just heal and attack, given that he can buff your party's attack and defense later on. I wouldn't say he's for everyone, but if you are like me and love those stat boosts, Teddy is pretty useful in the healer spot in the party. The final party member and product of my obsession until I actually got a girlfriend, Naoto Shirogane, a no-nonsense detective whose only goal is to seek out the truth. Naoto's persona, Sukuna Hikona, is a magic tank with a focus on light and dark abilities as well as almighty attacks and a few physical skills as well. The light and dark attacks might not sound too useful later on, but the almighty attacks hit really hard, though they do cost a good amount of MP, so conservation is key with Naoto. Well, if you're playing vanilla P4, that would be cause for concern, but Golden decided to give Naoto both Garudine and Agidine to start off with, making Naoto a no-brainer to use in any party. To be honest, with this inclusion, Naoto becomes the most overpowered party member. With no strengths or weaknesses and a high magic stat along with Mind Charge, you would be silly not to use Naoto. There is one other party member that is not combat-oriented but will still join you in every battle. Rise Kujikawa, former pop idol sensation turned depressed high school student, really moving up in the world. Rise is the navigator for the investigation team, which is basically the narrator for every battle, the role Teddy had before obtaining his persona, I might add. Rise's persona Himiko is the means in which you will be able to locate different dungeons within the Midnight Channel. In combat, she can analyze enemies and keep track of their weaknesses and abilities. But later on, as you progress through the game, Rise will gain the ability to buff your party members mid-battle, heal the party members' HP and SP after battles, discover enemy weaknesses without actually attacking them, even protecting the party from a fatal blow once per battle. She can even join in on the all-out attacks to deliver some extra damage. Rise is invaluable to the party, both in the plot and in gameplay. And she rounds out this this colorful cast of characters you get throughout your playthrough, every party member has an obvious role to fit in both the plot and the gameplay. And of course, we have the main character. We start with the persona Izanagi, who gets a little bit of everything to start off with, but our main character has the ability to obtain new personas and switch them out mid-battle. In order to obtain new personas, you have to enter Shuffle Time, a minigame after battle where you have to select a card/cards that all have different effects. In the original Persona 4, it's a pretty easy timing minigame, but in Persona 4 Golden, it's this minigame where you'll have a variety of cards to choose from that have different effects. Some will be new personas, others will up your persona stats or give them a skill upgrade or level up, which is nice. Others will give you XP or money boosts, some will give you skill cards. More importantly, you'll get cards that give you a negative effect like no money, but allow you to select more than one card. If you manage to clear the board, you'll get what's called a sweep bonus, in which you'll be guaranteed a shuffle time at the end of next battle, and you get to start off by selecting 3 cards instead of 1. Really fun feature, and it makes obtaining a lot of personas earlier on a lot easier than it was in vanilla Persona 4. Of course, you can level those personas up, but what you really want to do is visit the Velvet Room where you'll be able to fuse those personas together to create new, more powerful ones used in battle, like Jack Frost. This mechanic is what made me fall in love with Persona 4, and really the whole Megaton franchise. Being able to have fused personas inherit skills from the personas being fused made for awesome customization options. Of course, in the original Persona 4, you couldn't select those skills that passed over, but Golden allows you to actually select the skills, and really that makes Golden automatically the better game of the two. But what both versions of Persona 4 have is the social link system. This allows for fused personas to get extra XP upon fusion, and it makes fusion that much more of a useful tool to use throughout Persona 4. So the other half of Persona 4 outside of dungeons other than cutscenes will be spent progressing social links. Social links are the character's bonds with other characters in the game. The closer you become to another character, the higher the social link. Social links are useful because just like every persona, every character you have a social link with is connected to one of the 22 different arcana that aren't automatic. 24 if you're playing Golden since they added 2 extra social links in that release. When you fuse a new persona, depending on what your rank is with a social link that shares the same arcana as that persona you're fusing, you'll get an XP boost upon fusion. And let me tell you, this is incredibly useful and makes fusion really fun to use throughout the game. The social links themselves are all really interesting too. They match the game's theming of seeking out the truth and accepting your true self, though a lot of them go more the route of discovering your true self, which in my opinion is a very relatable plot thread. Luckily, unlike Persona 3, you do get a social link with every member of your party, which is really nice since they're all kind of a goofy bunch of characters. Plus, it makes them all feel that much more connected to the player character since we get so much one-on-one time with them. There are also a lot of social link specific events, usually involving dating the girl characters, in which you get to reject all of them like a Chad and hang out with the boys. Nah, the romantic stuff does kind of tickle that spot in my heart that loves cute lovey-dovey shit. Very worth save scumming to see all of them. Or a YouTube search. There's practical use for party member social links too, as they all gain new abilities as you progress their social links. Sometimes spells, sometimes passive abilities, but everyone's favorite.
You became friends with Yosuke. Yosuke will now die for you.
Outside of social links, you have 5 character stats to work on as well. Courage, knowledge, expression, understanding, and diligence. You can level these up in various ways, answering questions in class, reading books, completing side quests, which are also a thing in this game. One social link line actually requires side quests too. The number one way to level up certain character stats is to take the Mega Beef Bowl challenge at Aya on a rainy day. It'll level up 3 random stats aside from expression. Save scumming never felt scummier, let me tell you. All of these things, social links, character stats, weather reports, dungeons, side quests, all need to be juggled over the course of this game. And it really does give you the vibe of living the life of a high schooler who has a night job fighting monsters and saving lives. I really can't blame anyone for wanting to use a walkthrough. It could be a lot to manage without one. Not impossible, but definitely difficult, especially on a first playthrough. But damn if it isn't satisfying when you complete a social link, or level up a character stat, or fuse that perfect persona, or finally beat that annoying boss and get the next story cutscene finally. And I think what holds it all together is another magnificent soundtrack by the legendary Shoji Meguro. Persona 4 soundtrack goes for a pop rock vibe with its vocal tracks and background music, causing an overall upbeat vibe during battle and overworld exploration, but it knows when to come down and be a bit more somber or sinister. There's a lot of variety in Persona 4 soundtrack, and goddamn if it isn't one that lives rent-free in my head at all times. Persona 4 Golden added a lot of features that the vanilla game did not have. 2 more social links, which means a good chunk more personas to create and use. Rebalance the party members and enemies. To be honest, I think they made the game a lot easier this way, but it's not too easy, just noticeably easier. New follow-up attacks and combo attacks your party can pull off. New areas to explore. Better UI design for quests and book completion and whatnot. Being able to select your persona's abilities upon fusion, which is a godsend. Costumes each character can wear in battle and new music tracks. They added a lot to this release, goddamn. Another feature is this really weird TV guide thing where you can find extra content like the in-game cutscenes, explanations on some of the series terminology, old concert footage. There's also this 3-part quiz show you can play through. No real reason for doing so, it's just fun, I guess.
A cigar!
Overall, no matter what version you play, Persona 4 is a fantastic game, not just for fans of the JRPG genre either, but even newcomers that want to give the genre a chance. Its structure stands out and its Persona mechanics are incredibly fun to experiment with, all with a really interesting story that keeps stringing you along to the end. And the end of the game is incredibly satisfying in my opinion. It has just that little bit of extra that twists the plot just that much more after you think it's already all done. You almost have to fight the narration to get to it too, it's really cool presentation-wise. If you haven't played Persona 4, you owe it to yourself to play it, and hell, even if you have, you should play it again. It's always a good time. The vanilla version is available on PS2 if you can get your hands on a copy, or the PS3 store digitally. Persona 4 Golden is available on the PlayStation Vita if you're one of the 10 people to own that. It's also available on Steam too, and for a game like this, I'd assume just about any PC could run it. Still no console release for Persona 4 Golden, but knowing my luck, a week after this video uploads, it'll get announced and instantly date this video. Here's hoping. Persona 4 sold extremely well upon its initial release, and Persona 4 Golden sold even better than that, more so than Persona 3 did. So Persona 4, as it was infamously known for at the time, got a large slew of spin-offs, including 2 anime series. The original Persona 4 animation has a pretty good telling of the game's plot, I highly recommend that. The second one, Persona 4 The Golden animation, in my opinion is only good for a few episodes for spoiler reasons. Basically, the series focuses on the added events and social links they added to Persona 4 Golden, and in my opinion it made one of those 2 new social links like the reason they can beat the main villain, in turn making them the most important bond with the main character, in a series about all your bonds being important. It was kind of fun though, they basically made the anime like a New Game Plus playthrough.
誰が落ち武者だよろしくお願いします
We got Persona 4 Arena and Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. These games will get their own video someday, but basically they're fighting game direct sequels to Persona 4 and they are so much fun. If you enjoy Persona 4, please pick up Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. It's available on every modern platform except for Xbox. On the Nintendo 3DS, we have Persona Q and Persona Q2, more traditional dungeon crawlers that mix the cast from Persona 3 and Persona 4 in the first game and adds the cast from Persona 5 in the second. They're fine games, better if you have played all the Persona games before going into them, so bear that in mind. And of course we have Persona 4 Dancing All Night. Look, it's fine, okay? It's a fun rhythm game, alright? It's just so lame. Persona 4 is where I feel like the Persona craze got its start. It got a cult following from Persona 3 and didn't really blow up until after Persona 5. But 4 is where a lot of us fans got introduced to this series. Now, does Persona 4 need a remake of any sorts? Definitely not, but if they ever did remake it using the Dancing All Night models or something, I wouldn't be against it. Persona 1 and 2 need remakes due to how dated they are, and Persona 3 could use a definitive version that includes all the content from each release. So 4 can wait on the remake. Just port Golden to every console finally, we can call it good there for a while. Finally sitting down and replaying Persona 4 again after having not played it in a few years was definitely an interesting experience. Mainly because despite having played probably better games since then, I still felt the exact same way I did the last time I played Persona 4. And if it wasn't for this game, I wouldn't have ever gotten out of my JRPG anime hate phase. I would have never experienced some of my favorite games and shows. It still impresses me with its incredible pacing and gameplay, and I get excited knowing which part I'm coming up on next, or I can finally make that persona I used a lot in my initial playthrough of the game. I feel at home playing this game, like I'm back in high school when all I had to worry about was keeping my grades up and hanging out with friends. And even though I am satisfied with the person I've become since then, I still get nostalgic over the time I had back then. And Persona 4 more so than other Persona games remind me that they were definitely good times. I think that's why Persona 4 is still one of my favorite games. Is it my absolute favorite? I don't know, but I'm not really quick to put that label on things anymore. Regardless if it's the best, Persona 4 makes me feel a certain way very few games can. And honestly, that's all I want when going back to a game that changed me for the better. Especially the karting spin-off. We all wish this was canon, don't lie.